affected by the current naira scarcity. I mean, even here in Lagos, that the cashless system has matured. We have all seen how, at the end of the day, we still need cash to transact one way or the other. So it's been 2 weeks or up to 3 weeks of queuing at banks, ATMs, counters, lots of what I call it gymnastics taking place in some locations where people are scaling fences just to get in, as well as even the what I call it, the violence that has ensued nationwide in some locations, even when banks are burnt, and some bank officials, up to 13, have been attacked, and in some cases they have lost their lives. Now that's really getting to a very
Fatalities have been recorded.
of course, of course. So it's gotten to a tragic level, and to that extent, there's been a lot of pressure on the government, both the presidency and the CBN, which is the agent of government in this case, that is carrying out the Naira redesign policy. However, on the legal front, about 12 states, through the attorney generals, have taken the federal government to court through an ex parte injunction, which the Supreme Court responded that they should maintain status quo. And this was all tied to the cash redesign swap deadline, which the CBN had given for the 200, 500, and 1,000 naira notes. Now, the president did come out in response to say that, well, he sees the pains of Nigerians, hence that the 200 naira notes could still be used. However, the 500 and the 1,000 must maintain. Now, this has created more tension because some of the view, especially these governors, that the president is in breach of court order. And I think as of yesterday, there were filings for contempt of court. However, some state governors, especially at the top of the list, El Rufai, Kaduna, Ogun State, and I think Sokoto had Jigawa as well, were speaking to their citizens to, would I say, ignore the position of the presidency and maintain the use of their notes, that it was constitutional. However, I don't think their sound bites did have any effect. Many of the people within those states, having been broadcasted, are still rejecting the use of the 500 and the 1,000 naira notes. Now, the various associations within the banking and finance industry are also awaiting this position from the Supreme Court, who is meant to look into the matter today. So all and sundry are looking forward, hoping that a favorable decision will come forth. But you see, this is the legal, what I call it, the financial side of things. The real game at play here is the political. And that's what we all should keep our eyes on, because the president, through the CBN, did mention that this whole exercise was to address inflation and more so hedge vote buying. We are, how many days? 2.5 days to the election.
Right.
As of last week, it was like, wow, what was going to happen? How much longer can we bear and take this? But I hope Nigerians do understand that, yes, the president wants to ensure free and fair elections. Some politicians believe it's targeted at them. However, the CBN should do whatever it takes to ensure that there's larger distribution of cash around the country, because that is where the problem is. I mean, if there's cash available, I don't think this pressure will be mounted at banks.
All right, let us know what your thoughts are. 0809 444 0981. Moving on to the Daily Trust. Now, the Nigerian Railway Corporation says train services across the country would be suspended from the 25th of February, which is Saturday, election day, up until the 27th. Now, this suspension is going to happen all across the country due to the elections.
Okay, so we are gradually getting to one of the things that was suggested at this table, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, when NUC first announced the closures of the universities. We're getting to a point that, like I expressed before we went on air, somehow we have successfully created an environment of fear for ourselves by ourselves. If you ask anybody today on the streets of any town, any village in this country, you hear stay in your house, oh, don't go out, oh, this and that and that and that and that, And I'm asking myself, who is suggesting to us that we are going to create that there's going to be violence? Is it me? Is it you? Is it the listener out there that's going to create the violence? Exactly what is it that we are afraid of? Why did we get to the point that we have created this environment for ourselves? Now, it also then goes back to the other bit of it that I would like to say. The law enforcement, does it suggest to us that it's because we don't trust our law enforcement? Or is it that we know that we don't have enough, or that they are ill-equipped, or that the government is deliberate in creating this environment so that anybody can get away with whatever they want to do with the elections? Or I'm still at a loss as to why we're closing down everything. We've closed down the schools. The children are going to be home for 1 month, particularly the university students who just came out of a 9-month strike. We closed it down because we want to have an election in one day. So they're going to be at home for 4 weeks because of an election of one day, which is also a weekend. We've now closing down the train service. I mean, there's a difference between restriction and close down. The law says there is restriction of movement on election days. It didn't say shutting down everything. So, and I'm beginning to so that means that sometime in the future, or maybe even the next elections, the governorship and states House of Assembly election that is holding in March, somebody could wake up and say, look, for all the life of me, nobody should go out for the whole week preceding to the election. And then we would all stay at home. And the cost of all of this to the economy of the country that we want to grow, I mean, for every minute we shut down, what is the cost to us as a country? We complain that there are too many public holidays already. So these people are not going to work. So don't forget, there's a debt that's being repaid, the cost of building this train infrastructure we are talking about. We have taken 2-3 days out of the number of days that they would have made money to pay part of that thing back. So the consequences of some of these actions we take, how we wake up in the morning and think through all these things that we do. I mean, yeah, but one can also appreciate the fact that, okay, so we have created a fair environment for ourselves. Nobody wants to be the scapegoat of that fair environment, right? And then lastly, even when we were not in an election period, we were not certain that we were safe. That's where you hear people say, don't go out of the house by 6. Anywhere you are by 5, start heading home. Don't travel to Ibadan earlier than 7 o'clock in the morning. Don't come back later than 5 o'clock in the evening. And blah, 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 blah. People travel by train, the train gets hijacked. People go to their farms, they never return, they are killed by bandits. People travel on the road, they are kidnapped anyway. So whatever it is that we are trying to, what the problem it is that we are trying to solve by shutting down things like this because of an election, it still beats me.
All right. Well, let us know what your thoughts are. 0809 444 Abbas says, are we looking at this Naira scarcity beyond political angles? It's good that the governors have gone back to court on contempt charges. We need to test our laws. On the break given to students for elections, some of us may not like it, but we are also the ones saying that the government should do the needful so as not to disenfranchise the students. What else do we want? And Yinka says, Lakunle, it's a shame considering these unnecessary tensions that we put out there. Election is on a Saturday and we are closing schools that operate on weekdays. And everyone seems to be cool with it. Even offices are planning to switch to remote work, all because of an election. My wife has been planning to stock up the house, and in my mind, I'm like, what's going on, for heaven's sake? It's just insanity. Could this fear be as a result of things that have happened in the past?
No, definitely. There's precedent for it. Apart from that, remember there's intelligence ongoing, that various factions, some have nefarious or wicked plans to create some level of unrest. Remember, for some time now, we're discussing interim government, with elections happen or not. Hence, what they call the safety and precaution. That's all what you see at play.
All right, Wale says, Nigerians know why elections come with much apprehension. It's not a figment of our imagination. We appreciate you keeping the faith, but as long as emergency response is left to a certain unit in Nigeria, and there are three dots, and he says we will just stay cautious. Let's take a quick break, and we'll continue the conversation right here. This is Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1.
8.1. Love music, love life.
Small person going, enter with your change. Enter with your change because me I no sabi marry person.
You must have it.
Should I don't tell you before say I no get change?
You know
You
be
show you this
pastor.
one. We are take. And my number be
This
that.
commercial is
Hey, what
knows that
nonsense? What
he knows that
Jabba
we are gathered here
chances?
today.
The effrontery. Do I look cheap to you? How dare you?
Egbani, see
Egbani,
me see English o.
see
Me I no dey toast you. I no get interest. Na my first money wallet account be that. Abeg transfer my money give me.
Oh, serious.
So
This
sorry,
guy, I was
so
waiting for
sorry,
who would
my
move on.
bad.
For this
for
first man.
yourself.
Hey, now.
Oh, yes, first man.
Activate a first money wallet and
that was
receive
first
cash,
money.
make
That was
transfers, pay
because
bills,
there
and
needs
lots
to be a
more,
fintech
all with
solution
your
to
phone
this
number.
scenario.
Simply download the
Yeah,
first
right.
The
money
existing
wallet
ones are
app or
failing. No.
dial star
Yeah, right.
894
It's
star
the
1 hash
infrastructure
to enjoy
support.
boundless
If you
transaction
have one,
with
for
or
example,
without data.
Talk true.
mobile
You be the
money
finish.
wallet.
All money now
I
on
won't have
First
this
Money.
problem at all.
You
But because
first,
people
First
are
Bank.
Okay, that's on the mobile end. That's the
People are not,
PSP side.
even me that are talking about I don't have one.
Yeah, because the old one
10
was working.
seconds.
I go by the name Santa. Don't touch that dial.
You're listening to Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. We're looking at the stories making the headlines in Nigeria. Analysts this morning, Devoe and Lakunle. As always, we love it when you're part of the conversation. The WhatsApp number is 0809 4440981. You can actually catch the live stream on YouTube. Just search for Smooth 981. We're moving on to Vanguard. Now, the United Kingdom has reiterated its commitment to imposing visa restrictions on any politicians caught inciting violence in the forthcoming elections. Now, Catriona Lang, who is the British High Commissioner to Nigeria on a television program, stated that they are urging Nigerians to come out en masse to vote for their choice candidate, and they will be prepared to take action on those who incite electoral violence and any other anti-democratic behaviors.
Well, as usual, foreign parties do lend their presence to our elections, as always. And in this instance, our good neighbors in the United Kingdom, the British, were speaking through their High Commissioner in Nigeria, Catherine Lang. And as usual, she said they will be supporting Nigeria, the government, and the people to ensure a sustainable democracy and transfer of power. Now, on the other hand, it almost seemed as if it was coming from a school teacher or principal that a warning came forth that we will take action on those who incite electoral violence or anti-democratic behavior. And if you don't comply, we will use our visa ban to refuse you travel to the UK, as well as sanctions under human rights. Now, they believe in democracy and they believe in it growing. You see, I like the fact that they're supporting us. I mean, you can't knock that. However, Nigeria, how long are we going to have principals and school teachers, in quotes, overseeing how we operate and grow as a sovereign nation? Yesterday, INEC was briefing the foreign observers who had come into the country to actually support and what I call it, observe the elections as done in all democratic elections globally. And he was warning them that they should not interfere with the process, that the elections is taking place within Nigeria, and Nigeria, the Federal Republic of Nigeria, is a sovereign nation, and that must be respected. However, yes, respect is earned, and I think it's high time that as Nigerians, as citizens, for those of us within the country and those of us within the diaspora, let's get our act together. You know, these things don't sound right in the fullness of time. I mean, think about it, that I will not let you travel to my country if you misbehave. I mean, that's like telling a small child, I will not give you cookies if you don't behave yourself. Do you understand? And the truth is, we have disappointed ourselves. Now, part of this whole process, one, we thank God that there's growing participation and interest, especially among the youth who form not only just the biggest constituency in this country, over 100 million of them, but they form the future. They are the ones that are going to be directly impacted from whether we choose good leaders in terms of presidential, state, national assembly, state assembly to govern at the various levels. They're the ones that will receive this impact. But we must ensure that in carrying out this exercise, which is, as they define democracy, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. So we must ensure that we carry out in a manner which is appealing and appeasing in a safe and sustainable manner. As the one-time president did say, that was Goodluck Jonathan, political ambition is not worth the blood of any Nigerian. I think earlier we are talking about how many people were apprehensive, why all the shutdown, why all the security surveillance. We know how much fracas and flashpoints come with Nigerian elections, and that's speaking to the monetization, to speaking to the how do they say it? No victor, no vanquished. In Nigeria, it's victor takes everything. And it's been like that for some time now, and it's about time we start to put an end. And that's why to some extent we can understand the presidency's move in terms of the trying to address vote buying, why politicians will go at all costs to ensure that they win the vote. Two, why some instances some people might be intimidated, which is why we believe the military, the police, and the security forces will work together to ensure some kind of peaceful and safe environment so that citizens nationwide, whatever the location, will come out boldly and vote their choice. Lastly, what I would say is I also hope that communities, because in as much as the military and the police are there, I think they also need support. The same way we did during the Boko Haram instance, where communities came together to create some kind of level of vigilante. I'm appealing that they take up that same format in this time to ensure that we all vote. We don't want to hear cases of inconclusive elections in some, because remember, if violence ensues in any location, INEC is empowered to either counsel or render that polling inconclusive, and that leads to all manner of gymnastics that we don't like.
Now, speaking about the High Commissioner's plans to impose visa bans, we hear about these visa bans all the time. How about maybe placing restrictions on some of these people so they can't invest in these countries outside Nigeria? They can't buy property. Wouldn't that be more beneficial?
Yeah, that comes with the human rights sanctions. Same way you saw the way the EU is dealing with Russia in terms of not just the government, but the players, state actors. They're freezing their accounts, freezing their transactions, and also freezing any form of economic benefit for them. So that falls under the human rights sanctions.
Okay,
yes.
all right. Thanks for clearing that up. Let's go on to our messages. Abbas says, which democracy does the UK believe in? The prime ministers are picked by a few. Do we impose any sanction on them? Why do they do why they do anything in their own country? We have to find a way to do away with this slave to master relationship. We are a sovereign state and shouldn't be told how to behave by an ambassador. What is it about visas to those countries anyways?
Well, it's now we that chase them.
Joseph says, the truth, the policy of the money swap and Naira redesign have done more harm than good because people are more hungry, angry, and frustrated. So given even 2,000 Naira or 5,000 Naira, they will vote with a compromised conscience, and the security architecture does not guarantee anyone confidence. Justice is almost always denied in most situations. And Tony Chima says they'll behave. You see that visa ban? That one can rattle any Nigerian politician any day.
Yes,
it
sir.
has the magic wand that humbles them big time, thanks to the UK and US consulates. Yinka Bolu says, this whole visa ban talk by these Western countries irritates me. I beg, is it a visa to heaven? But I don't blame them. After all, we sell ourselves for cheap.
It'd be like,
Any small thing, we start writing letters to them over issues that we ought to sort out internally. All right, keep the messages coming. The WhatsApp number again, 0809 440 981. And we're moving to our next story, and this one has to do with agriculture. Okay, and this is coming from this day. Now, Nigeria is seeking to meet Gambia's agricultural needs. That is the headline. The executive director of Nigerian Export Promotion Council, Dr. Ezra Yakusak, says it's leading 40 Nigerian exhibitors to the Gambia International Trade Fair in Banjul. Now, he's justified the country's participation at the expo and says that the economy of Gambia is heavily reliant on agriculture but does lack significant minerals or other resources. And he says that Nigeria can definitely take advantage of the deficits to meet the agricultural requirements of the Gambia.
Right. The Nigerian Exports Promotion Council was set up basically to promote SMEs, MSMEs, exporting of Nigerian products, agricultural product, generally non-oil exports generally, right? So to that extent, it's good that Nigeria, as the big brother of Africa and West Africa in particular, in quotes, it's a good thing that we're spreading our tentacles or looking beyond oil to earn some foreign revenue, which would help to pay for some of our budget deficits. If you look at it from that perspective, I don't know any other country in West Africa today who will not ordinarily on a good day say, Nigeria, I'm ready to be your 37th state. So Nigeria is that influential in West Africa. So when we look at it from that perspective, yes. But then we just go to a little bit away from that. Now the question is, my people would say that if somebody was going to give me a dress, I should look at what the person is wearing first. Now we're saying that we want to help Gambia meet its agricultural needs. Have we been able to meet our own needs in-house first? We still import rice heavily despite all the investments we made in rice in the last 7 years. We still struggle with a lot of things. The number of our agricultural produces that goes to waste, the ones that we do that we are not able to account for, the number of the 2 seasons of farming, of planting, 2 planting seasons that we have maybe not maximized because of flooding and the bandits activities in certain areas of Nigeria. So when we look at it from that perspective, is this the time to go and promote selling our agricultural produce to another country? Should we not concentrate on ensuring that we are able to feed ourselves first, and then we'll be able to consider this after we are sure that we're able to feed ourselves? Now, if we look at it from a third angle, I went to check what is the contribution of agriculture to the GDP of the 2 countries. It is not so much different from each other. Gambia's today, the contribution of agriculture in Gambia today to their GDP is 19.7%. Nigeria's is 24.1% or thereabout for the figures of 2021. So when you look at it in terms of percentages, there's not much difference between what they do there and what we do here. That means that we're in the same category of how we are able to feed ourselves, right? So I'm now wondering why we are taking from ours to feed 200 million people to go and add to what they need to feed about 2 million people. You get so that the things that we need to also consider in making those kind of decisions. But if we're just talking about making money in foreign currency to make for Nigeria and for the business people, fine, let's go and do it. But if you look at the bigger picture, is it what we should be thinking of now?
Yeah, I want to add to that because this is actually a whole session, this article. It's unfortunate. Let me put it in proper perspective. Gambia has 2 million people. 2 million people is not larger than the size of Aja. So ask yourself, how come a whole Nigeria with 200 million people cannot even help Aja in terms of feeding? That's how bad it is, because the problem is not even how we feed ourselves. How come we don't have, because if you, for those who are into exports, you will understand how frustrating it is, not only to grow the crops, put them in a format that is internationally acceptable, and then even moving them. There's so many protocols, laws in place that are prohibitive to us meeting this, even if we wanted to, right? And this is where the real the real tragedy is that we're not even structured to make foreign exchange in a seamless manner.
Those are the things that NEPC is supposed to solve for the
Yes.
business people. Yes. So
Talk less of the
so-
Africa Free Trade
So, but
Agreement.
my worry is just that, are we able to feed ourselves first before we go and feed somebody else?
All right, let's look at the messages. Idima Puza says lots of marriages and homes are shaking as a result of the Naira scarcity wahala. Something needs to be done. And David says, have we met our own agricultural needs? Gab, via WhatsApp, the visa ban should be extended to their immediate families, and those who are already citizens should have their citizenship suspended.
Haba.
Anything worth doing is worth doing well.
Abi?
And Gilbert says, right, on the insecurity on the forthcoming election, it is justified. Reason, in 2011, after the presidential elections, numerous people were killed, including youth corps members killed in Nigeria.
Let's
Were
not
the
forget.
perpetrators ever brought to justice?
Mm.
All right, well, that is all the time that we have for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your messages. And of course, special thanks to my analysts, Devoe and Lakunle, for joining us. Do stay with us. There is a lot more to come on The Smooth Breakfast.
To make a 13-year school.
Yeah, it went fast.
It went really